Thanks everybody for coming. I think we're all set and ready to roll. So here we go. Dun 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 dun. We're live. We're live. Hi everybody. Welcome to Soundbroker'S Mastermind Roundtable. My name is Jan Landy, and I want to thank you all for coming and listening and tuning in wherever you are. The Mastermind Table is an idea. Thanks everybody for coming. Whoa. Well, we're all set and ready to roll. Well, that's pretty impressive right there. Okay. So anyway, I was so impressed with myself, I had to record myself a second time. Anyway, this is the Soundbroker Roundtable. The concept of this is to put all the minds of our industry together so that we can come up with ideas to survive this terrible time so that we're around when COVID is over. And there's a lot going on right now. So I want to thank you all for coming. And this is not the Jan Landy Show. Everybody here is here to participate. Our people in the panel right now, you're all industry leaders. We have Doug Kocsis from DK Capital here to answer some financial questions because today's theme is going to be about money. How are we going to get money to survive these tough times because everybody needs some money. So I think we'll start it off. Doug, why don't you introduce yourself and tell people what you do, and let's get moving.
All right. So yeah, I am Doug Kocsis from DK Capital, and I am an equipment financing person. I've been doing this since I think I started in '88. Worked for another leasing company for a while, and started DK Capital in 2003. Put all my attention into servicing, the live event market. So whether it be sound, lighting, video, we finance virtually any of that equipment. And of course, we can finance anything, but it's just what I've focused my attention on over the years. DK Capital is experiencing the setback from COVID-19, just like everyone else. It's been a tough start, or 2020 for sure, and so we're really paying attention to what our underwriters are, how they're thinking, and what they're offering as far as assistance and whatnot. But yeah, that's about it. Equipment financing. So that's what I do.
Well, very nice. And by the way, in the chat, if anybody needs Doug's name and number, you'll see it in the chat. Anyway, so basically, Doug, tell me what's going on right now as far as the money scene goes. What are you finding? What people are doing? Financing? I don't want to give you too many questions at one time, but let's start about refinancing.
Well, refinancing, we haven't had too many people refinance their agreements with us. Some have opted to buy out our deal and extend the terms with either the SBA money that's available, or they've consolidated their debt with their banks. For the most part, we've had customers call and ask for some payment relief, and all of my underwriters and myself as well, with our internal funding, we're very willing to accommodate any request for deferred billing. That seems to be what helps a lot of people get through these no income months, and gets them thinking of what's my next step, where am I going to start making some money. Some folks are venturing into install projects more than they had in the past. Some are jumping right out of sound temporarily and moving into video to do video conferencing and whatnot, something that is more widely used, I suppose, in this day and age. But yeah, not too much in the form of customers asking for a refi.
Yeah, because what I would say to you right now is, yeah, we're seeing this, and I'm showing on the screen right now. I don't know if you guys can see it, but this is one of my customers who bought an SL320, and they're doing a drive-in movie theater. So basically, screens are definitely taking shape, LED panels, all of that. And in regards to that, we also know that that Live Nation, for example, is also doing they're doing concerts right now as well, where for drive-in theaters, and then of course we've got that good old Walmart, and they are also getting ready to do some drive-ins right now, but they're going to be showing I believe, movies on the side of their wall. And so basically that's what we have, and that's what's going on. So, what about financing? I mean, are you finding it easy or difficult to get people money right now?
Uh, I think it's a little more difficult. I think that I don't think credit wants to admit it, but they're tightening their belts. They're being a little more selective. Um, it's, what for my clientele, what I'm seeing mostly right now are install transactions, churches, some performing arts centers, uh, and then there are some production companies that are doing uh, some short-term financing, but not too many. What I found with the churches, which I thought was interesting, is uh, the underwriters are looking at them more like just a regular business. Some are saying, look, we won't look at them unless there's a guarantee, a personal guarantee, which I think is silly, but that's just an indicator that they're tightening their belts a little bit. Uh, the fact that churches aren't holding services in-house, I think causes the underwriters to look at it as how are they going to generate revenue? And my argument is, look at their tithing. We look at the financial statements and the tithings are still up. It doesn't matter whether the bodies are in the building or not. It's whether they're generating revenue. And in some cases, the churches are generating more tithing and they have less operational costs. So their financial statements look stronger.
Mhm.
But it's still it's a hard sell right now. Cost of money is not increasing. In fact, with a few funders, they've dropped their rates. But when you look at their credit criteria, it is, they want that top quality credit applicant to be able to get that type of a rate structure.
Mhm. So are they putting up collateral right now? What kind of collateral are they putting up for these loans, or is just the gear?
It's just a gear. Yeah, yeah. We're not over collateralizing anything.
Hey,
Ken
Doug,
Porter, question?
has any of the underwriters been coming back and asking for unusual things like they want a monthly financial statement or a cost of, uh, also a forecast of work coming in and money cash flow or anything like that? They start asking for any of those?
A little bit, yeah. They want to. There's a form that some of the underwriters are handing out, or they ask me to hand out. That is a COVID summary. So it has a series of questions that pertain to how has COVID affected your business, and what's your plan as with this equipment? What's the plan for the equipment? What's your forecasted work? Uh, if they feel like COVID has shut you down, are you buying it to hopefully get back on track, or is there an actual plan? So that's that review sheet. It asks that. Some funders are asking for 2019 and 2018 financials when they normally wouldn't. And I'd say a smaller ticket transaction, they might look at the deal and say, hey, everything looks good, but I just want to know, where are they at financially? How did they look last year? We already know 2020 is not going to look very good. How did they look last year? And so they're looking at a tax return or a P&L just to support their credit approval.
Mhm.
Wouldn't they have their own view of the business to say, yes, if you're touring or you're doing special event stuff, small, theaters are going to come back first of the year, February. Most stuff's not going to come back till shed season next year, and bigger stuff's not going to come back till later.
Right. Yeah, I've been relaying some of that information to the underwriters, letting them know what I hear as far as the the forecast of the wide range of live sound, and so they're aware of it, and they're trying to lend. Uh, but at the same time, they just don't want to write the note and then have a customer say immediately, I can't pay it. I need relief. So they're being a little cautious. And I think that's why they're looking back at other financial information.
Mhm.
And asking pastors to personally guarantee the note. They want that little added security. I just went through that today. An hour conversation with one of the pastors I'm working with, and he concluded, he said, look, I need this equipment, so I'll guarantee it. And he he folded on that. I told him not to. I said, call your bank. But I think maybe the bank's doing the same thing.
Now, were you hearing anything with SBA? Is SBA doing anything or offering any money that way?
Well, yeah, the whole stimulus plan that SBA, I'm not sure what the acronym is, but I've had a lot of customers call in for payoffs, like I said earlier, where they said, look, I'm going to take this SBA, they get 1 year without payment. It's based on 30-year amortization at 3% or 3.5% or whatever. And I'll just dump your deal, and this will help me survive, and I'll come back later. If I need money later, I'll come back. And that's helped a few of the customers. I'm not so sure it's a great idea. As long as they can pay that off early with no penalty, that's a good deal, because it does give you that delayed period to get through all this. But long-term borrowing on equipment that has a 5 to 10 year life expectancy is a little scary.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, that SBA is definitely being used by some people.
Mhm. So, one thing that I wanted to talk about, Michael can't be here today, evidently, but I got a letter from him last night, basically closing the bill for the restart language. And just the day before, he sent me an email as well, saying that we're very, very close, that we're getting this money from the government. And it looks like that what they're trying to do on the restart is get us to get at least 1/4 of money that we don't have to pay back right away, either at low interest or no interest, and it might even totally be forgiven on something like that. Let me see if I could just find this letter right here. And basically, he entitled it. I don't know if you all saw that, but he says it's a bit of positive news that the Democrats have announced they will be working towards a $1.75 trillion package, while the Republicans have not publicly said such. There seems to be wide support to come up to that. So it looks like something could happen, all depending on whether or not the states get some money or not. So that's one of those things that that's a possibility. Also, I've noticed as far as money goes, a lot of the counties and states are offering financial assistance to people. And I was wondering if anybody out there in this panel has heard anything about that, about the money coming from counties, states, cities, municipalities in their neck of the woods. Has anybody come up with anything has anybody heard of anything like that other than here in Nevada? Chip, you're muted.
Yeah, we're actually working on a Missouri grant program right now that is for manufacturers or businesses to retool to build PPE. So I've got my road case company working on a grant right now to start building shields. And if we can get that, that's a completely forgivable grant. And from what I understand, other states are doing things. In Missouri, they did a crap job marketing this. I just happened to stumble across it. The lady that's running it said they're actually having a hard time giving the money away because nobody knows it's out there.
Well, shields seem to be a pretty good thing right now. I just got this. From Empire. That's one of my distributors, and basically, as you can see, these are shields for schools. There's one with the teacher, one for the students, and so that's something that that's a possibility as well. Where people can raise money to get things going. During this tough time, because basically that's this whole concept. I want to show you one other thing, and this has to do with London, and it's with the trance. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but as you could see, and I think you can see this. Let me make this the bigger. I think you could see that. Yeah. If you look at it, you'll see, and I don't really know how they can make money doing this, but it seems like they've got everybody spaced out on risers. Has anybody seen anything like this? Does anybody have anything that they want to say about this? Hello?
Hey, Jan. So there's a gentleman out of England. He's a safety consultant. His name is Ben Crabb. We're connected on LinkedIn. And he was the safety consultant for this event. And another one just like it for a different artist just a few days afterwards. Just in some brief conversations with him on LinkedIn, it sounded like this physical setup was going to stay up for a little while so they could have multiple shows. And that's probably where the money will be made. Because obviously, if you had to set this and strike this daily or every weekend, that probably would cut into your profit a lot, I would think. But anyway, he's actually writing a white paper on everything. So basically, he had to write a proposal to the Ministry of Health to be allowed to do this event in the first place. From his proposal to the MH, he's going to extrapolate a white paper, and he said he's going to publish that on LinkedIn. Publish it on the web and put the link on LinkedIn. So as soon as I have it, I will send you a copy, and then you can disseminate accordingly.
Okay, very, very good. Doug, as far as money goes, I mean, are you seeing more people coming to you and asking you about whether money is, and what kind of interest rates are available right now?
The volume has tapered off. More, I think people are just going to sit tight until they know what the future holds, or when events are permitted again. Money has not changed, other than a few funders have dropped their rates, trying to spark some interest. Cost some money. The low end, to cost some money to me prior to commission, is in the lowest end is in the upper 4.75, I think, is the lowest that I've seen. So on the streets, you put a commission in there, and it might be a point higher than that, and that's pretty aggressive for a fixed rate loan. But again, to me, it's frustrating when they offer that in a time like this, when people are hesitating on borrowing money. But if there is a need for it, I think that cost of money is pretty fair. But then at the same time, there's some underwriters who are still in the upper single digits, and so we're selling the money at 9-10% because they want to take on a higher risk transaction. They're offering more of a curved credit parameter, so they may have a lower rate for some, and then they say, okay, well, this qualifies for this rate structure. So it's pretty broad spectrum still in rates. I think. I don't think that there's one particular rate that all these funders can offer.
One of the things I would like to do is you maybe go around the room and see what people are doing, in regards, because we're all in this together, and what ideas are we coming up with, to get money, Like, for example, in the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've received 4 different emails from the Jim Flynn Company, which is the auction company, right? And these people are not going out of business, but at least 3 of them are not. One is, but basically they're having auctions to get rid of all of their excess gear that they haven't used in years. And I don't know how well these auctions are going to take place, because the first one is basically taking place right now as we speak, and it's over on Friday. So I don't know if they're going to be raising any money or not, but I would love to go around the room and see what if anybody has any ideas of, because this whole thing is about having money, raising money. What do we do to survive? So maybe we could throw this up, and maybe some people want to share some ideas. Anybody? Oh, that's good. All right.
I think the only place to get money is buy and install, put them in installs and stuff like that. You're not really doing well just on the street blasting stuff out.
No.
The other part of it too is it is somewhat worthwhile to take whatever you can get to. Is that on the backside of it, you do get to take it off your insurance list there, so that drops some of your rates and other things like that. So there are some other consequent things you can lower your operating costs by getting some of your assets out of the building.
Yeah, that's good. Michael.
And I will say on a smaller scale, but along those lines, obviously, if people are using their vehicles less, make sure you let your insurance company know that, because that'll drop your rates. We did receive a grant from the city of Las Vegas. And it was funny, the max amount of the grant, I think, was $4,000. And it was specifically for preparing my company for return to business. In other words, COVID-19 preventions and precautions, PPE purchases, that sort of stuff. And I think I asked for like $3,100 or something. And 3 days later, I got a check for the full $4,000 with a letter that just said, here, just take the full $4,000 and make good use of it. And it's a full grant. It's not a loan. It's a gift. Lowe's also has a grant program going for small businesses. It's up to $10,000. What else I saw another one, and I have a note on it here somewhere. I'll send it to you, Jan, if I find it and get it off. But those aren't individually large sums, but next thing you know, you put 4 and 10 and maybe another 5 somewhere else together, and 25 grand might make the difference this fall.
Michael, well, you're here in Nevada with me, and did you hear about the Clark County program where they're offering up to $10,000?
Yes, and I was a little disappointed that, because it is so all of the local municipalities are doing some version of that. So Henderson, North Las Vegas, Clark County, and Las Vegas are all giving away money. It's part of the federal money that they got for COVID-19. However, all of them are collaborating so that you can only get money from one source. So because I got my $4,000 from the city, I'm ineligible for the $10,000 from the county.
It's we've all been in this business many years. We know a lot of people. We know some people that are really struggling really hard. There's some people out there that their businesses were doing great and they leveraged a lot going into this year because they're like, this is going to be, a great year. I mean, I know people who own, lighting and staging, audio, various different, disciplines in our industry. And some of them are struggling. I was talking to this one guy today, and he's got a whole bunch of video. You hear about this video work that's out there. It's really actually only a tiny bit of work. And he's looking for a solution to, he was dealing with like a couple of different loan companies, and he's looking for a solution rather than having to explain to each one and go through the process. He's trying to find, what he would like to do is try to find one loan company to take all of his debt and just put it into one. But isn't that impossible when you have no income coming in right now during these times? Has anybody heard of anything like that, with regards to?
I think the Treasury Main Street Lending Program will let you retire debt. It is a 5-year loan, 3.25%, no interest payment the first year, double compounded interest payment the second year, interest plus 15% of the principal the third year, same the fourth, and then interest, and then a balloon of 70% at the end. But I think it goes by your last year financials and stuff there and percentage you get there. But from what I recall on it, it does not give you, it doesn't limit you where you can spend the money.
Yeah.
Now, Dave, you're here in the room. You have any comments you want to bring up? Anything you want to say? What's going on with you guys? You just need to unmute yourself. That's all. And then, so funny that's why none of us, whenever we're doing shows, give the performer a microphone. That's exactly right.
We've been pretty proactive in pursuing the various loans, PPP, Main Street, and then SBA, the EIDL money. The SBA has actually been pretty good out here. They paid off part of our building loan. They forgave 3 months of payments on the property, just free and clear. They said, just don't pay it. And we just had they said they automatically just would take less money out of the auto pay. And that ended up being about $4 or $5 grand a month, which was nice. The EIDL went well. I can say that if you're going to go for the Main Street loan, we're having a little bit of conflict with that. We applied for the Main Street, or we're in the process of applying for that. And the EIDL loan puts a lien on a lot of your total assets, so they're pretty aggressive in their liens. So that compromises your bank that's doing the Main Street loan is going to be a little more reluctant to be in second position there. So we're looking at maybe paying back the EIDL loan to free up that that first position. It's not that much money. It was 150 grand, so it's not crippling, but it's definitely. Also, they seem to count available credit lines and stuff like that. So the Main Street is, I think it's 4 times your income from last year, your gross, or your EBITDA for last year, and then they start deducting a bunch of stuff out of there. So yeah, the caution, that whole thing of like getting one loan and getting blocked from others is caution. All in all, I mean, we're fine. Yeah, the whole finding money thing is, there's a time we're all playing, I guess, the time. We're gambling against time. We want to stay prepared. It's like a storm has come through. We're all on a ship, and we want to lighten the load and survive the storm without throwing any food overboard so that we die in the storm, and making sure the ship is still seaworthy after the storm. And finding that trajectory is difficult with the unknowns as far as the length of time before things start to recuperate. Right. Early on in this adventure, in March, April, when we first started implementing reactions to it, I put together a 12 to 18 month timeline based on figuring no matter what happens, it's going to take 1 to 3 months for it to stop growing, 1 to 3 months for it to stabilize, 1 to 3 months for it to fall, 1 to 3 months for us to be comfortable with the fall, and then 1 to 3 months to kind of turn the corner and start doing stuff. And by adding those up in the average, I came up with a 12 to 18 month time frame before things would start to be viable again, maybe not full string. So we're looking at April next year to be kind of things to start puttering along and gaining some traction. Late next year, right before the seasonal downturn, things should get some good traction, and not till 2022 till we have any sort of semblance of pre-COVID type business. So we're gauging our trajectory to weather this 12 to 18 month from March of this year time frame as a not conservative but a reasonable trajectory to follow. And I guess my last thing is talking about money. I guess the biggest challenge for us and maybe other companies is the, Doug, it's great to see you there, and thank you for all the work over the years. And
good to see you too.
Having the overhead. I mean, having a significant amount of assets, but also having the debt service through the downturn with a minimal amount of income. And some way, I mean, that's really for us, and I'm sure other companies, if we could eliminate the debt service, everything would be fine. We could actually run neutral buoyancy or in the black to some, not a good black, but just basically we could keep things running for an indefinite period of time without the debt service. We don't want to sell off gear because we want to be prepared for the resurgence. On the other hand, maintaining the debt service or building up debts or even, you know, getting deferments and stuff just backpiles all this constipation, financial constipation into the future, which is quite concerning. And then you figure out how far deep you're going to go into that and how vulnerable you are as an individual versus your corporation. And maybe one aspect to look at here is doing something where finding outside financing to temporarily purchase assets or contingent purchase of assets in exchange for, at a low rate, temporary or contingent purchase of a block of assets at a greatly reduced below not only book value, but below current market value. But the contingency would be such that at some future point, 3 years down the road, first right of refusal, first option to buy back stays with the company. So you sell, I don't know, sell $1 million worth of asset to someone with a promissory note to buy it back for $1.3 million, but the assets are worth $3 million. And for the investor, they get $3 million worth of crap for $1 million. The company relieves themselves. The $1 million that comes in is used to eliminate debt service. So then all of a sudden you don't have your overhead. You reduce that big outgo. And you still have access to all your assets. And then throughout the downturn time, the company has the ability to rent the assets from the investment group at some reasonable rate, 50% of market. So you've still got assets and viability to surge back up at will, yet you have eliminated your debt service and made yourself have long-term you can survive a long or extended period of time. And then at the end of the 3 years, if things are going well, you go back to Doug. You go back to a company and say, I got $3 million of assets I can buy for $1.3 million. It's easily worth that, $2 million on the open market. And you finance it and pick up a loan then and rejuvenate your debt service. So that kind of creative financing, I think, is something worth considering.
Well, and doesn't that model already exist? Because that's what the casinos have all been doing here in Vegas for the last few years.
I'm sure that model exists in many forms. It's something that I've implemented in the past. It's and just tailoring that to our specific industry. And then that might be something, Doug, you could help with. I don't know. Is that something that a company could come to you and say, here's $3 million, here's stuff that, and Jan, pricing of stuff or what current markets are. Here's stuff that even in COVID downturn is worth $2 million. And normally it would be worth $3 million. We're looking for $1 million temporary loan against it or buyout on it. And there's a return on investment when things surge up. And there's a buyback. And the worst thing that happens is the company loses all the gear, but there's still no debt. Everybody wins.
Yeah.
I don't think our current funders would be, they're set in their way. They have their model. But I'm sure that there are people in our association that that offer. I receive emails all the time from factoring companies and working capital loan lenders and whatnot. So there's got to be someone who can take that model or I could present that model to them and they say, yeah, we do that all the time.
Shit.
I got to believe it.
If I wasn't a little more, it was a little less dependent on this situation, I would do it for someone else right now.
Right.
Yeah, this is a model that if a sound company came to me and said, and I trusted them, and they're honest, ethical company with a good reputation, said, hey, you want to buy our inventory for X amount? I'll be like, hell yes, but you got to sell it back to us if we don't make it. All right. And we'll pay you in the meantime. Either way, I've got a 30%, it's 10% per year, whatever, 8% per year markup on it. 3 years, it marks up 24%. So I get 8% on my money. Worst case scenario is they buy it back. They don't buy, and plus any rentals in the meantime. And if they don't buy it back, I get all this gear and I predict 3 years out what it's going to be worth. I could do that calc and make a decision there that would be beneficial to both parties, on either side of that equation.
Well, as soon as we get out of this meeting, I'm calling Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, see what we can do for you guys. All right? Because the reality is that this industry, people are begging us. They're just begging us to get back to business. Here, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but I want to show you something. I want to show you if I can figure out how to do this now. Why did I? There it goes. This is Smash Mouth at Sturgis, right? And look at these people. Now, this is knowing full well that there is COVID out there, but look at how many people showed up to see a band's play. Now, of course, they say one person's got COVID, so now everybody there, whether they care or not, I don't know. But the reality is that the people do want to be entertained. People absolutely want to be entertained, and the need to gather is overwhelming, because the reality is I don't really think that something like this is really going to make a long impression, because people do want to get together with one another the way they are. That's all there is to it. So I think we're all in a good place. It's just a matter of surviving it. As I always said, it's like, my analogy this week was, first week I was with the boat, then I was with, I was talking about this being on the Starship Enterprise, going boldly where no one has ever gone before, and not wanting to be in one of the red shirts. But now I feel like I'm in a forest and it's foliage, and somehow I've gotten off the path. And I could hear the voices yelling, over this way, and I just got to figure out how to get over that way in time so that I don't starve to death or not have enough water to drink during those periods of time. And I think we're all in that same boat right now, or to mixed analogies, boat and forest, whatever. One other thing that's going on right now, and there is a big movement right now to let people know where we are, like rolling down cases down the street. But in England, they had We Make events, and if you haven't seen that, this is pretty impressive what they're doing over there. It's just something that people are doing so that you can make people aware of the industry that we're in, that they depend on so much.
We're doing that here, Dan. They set the date for the U.S.
They're actually doing that here today in Las Vegas, rolling down. Also, one other thing that I wanted to point out to you is that Chuck Schumer has got a bill right now running through the Senate, if you hadn't heard about that, and that's something else that I just found out about. And basically, it's called the Our Stages Act, and basically it's an idea to keep. I'll read it to you. Independent venues like theaters, concerts halls are the beating heart of New York cultural life during the force in the economics. But right now, local businesses are shutting down. And so that's the concept right there for him. And so there are lots of people out there doing their best for us, but it just seems that it seems to be slow, and we just have to hold on until that point. And so any ideas that anybody has right now, and Dave, your idea is excellent, you know. Anybody else want to chip in here with, speaking of Chip, Sean?
Hey guys, I'm in Los Angeles City, Los Angeles County, Southern California, and California. And I think a few of you will relate. It's pretty difficult with rules and regulations here. I just wanted to share. We've bid on about 30 projects, which is incredible in the last 5 months, and they've all been drive-in movie theaters and live virtual streams. Literally the only two topics of discussion. And we've won 5 of them, which keeps a couple of us busy. But we've been trying to get a little bit more creative, and I just wanted to throw a couple ideas we've been working on. But there's talk that we're not going to be able to get out of the car for a bit here. So we're working on things like drive-in haunted houses and drive-in photo booth moments, and trying to take these trade shows into a drive-through the trade show experience. And then I just wanted to comment that we've gotten input that essential workers and essential businesses can get permission to do events and projects. So things that we hadn't thought about are manufacturing, the sales effort of any type of product, training employees, sales conventions of like a car premiere, those types of events, which literally have been, no, you can't do that. Most government agencies are now saying, well, you probably can do that. You put that picture up, Jan, of everyone in their little booths sitting on the field, which would be dreamy. But maybe Dave can comment on this with the Ventura drive-through concert series, but we have been absolutely, you may not get out of your vehicle and you may not sit on a platform, and nothing that you do can even remotely seem like you're assembling. So all these great ideas are amazing. I think we're many, many, many months away from really being able to do that stuff. So on that note, has anyone had any requests to put bids in on some odd stuff besides a drive-in movie theater or a live stream? I'm curious what other sectors might be active.
Well, I'm hearing about LED walls. I'm hearing about churches on mobile theaters. I'm hearing about outdoor events of all sorts of different things. But again, I am not the one that I'm not actually producing shows anymore. I know Dave Sherman is in the room, and I know he talks to a lot of people, as concert consultants that he is. And if maybe he has something he can, if he's listening in, he might want to pop in and say something. Yep, I see him. There he is.
How you doing, Jan? And hello, everybody. One major observation I have this week, Jan, is that the creative ideas, the new evolutionary event platforms and presentation technology formats, like Sean was talking about. We touched on this 2 weeks ago. Do the math and follow the money. When you have socially distanced audiences and you have groups of people in cars, and the cars are spaced like at a drive-in type event, ultimately you have a lower carrying capacity for the audience area, for the square footage, whether it's a sports field, an empty lot, a Walmart or a Target shopping center parking lot. So monetizing the event is what drives the risk assessment for all the contributors. Whether you're renting porta potties and folding chairs or bringing line arrays and LED walls to a gathering, even if it's socially distanced, somebody somewhere has to financially underwrite the event. And so what I'm seeing and hearing about a lot from the major event promoter communities including Live Nation and AEG through the Oakwood Group. There are many, 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 many potential ideas. Lots of pent-up demand, like you say, on the audience side, Jan. Pent-up demand on the artist side, on the performer side. They don't want to be sitting in their house doing iPhone recordings and streaming views of themselves with an acoustic guitar. They want to be out there with their peeps, with their fan base. And so at present, some of the on the artist side, on your client side, if you're a production service company, yes, you have performers willing to take a haircut, meaning get out and do events, do a series of events, participate in a string of events for lower than market rate, a much lower show guarantee, a lower net profit expectation, a stripped down entourage, reduced overhead to mobilize their show, whatever it is, however it's going to be put up. And you still don't get our industry back up to the to unity gain. You know, we're at minus 30 dB, minus 40 dB right now, and you don't get us back up to unity gain financially, so that the wheels all start to turn again, unless you have the money coming from somewhere. If it comes from ticket holders or people paying to participate in a streaming event that happens occasionally, that's great. It's just not probably going to get back to the run rate that we saw as a nationwide and certainly a worldwide industry, unless and until we can crack the code of public assembly. And that means, what is the public health situation? What's really true? What's really happening? And how is that being regulated, managed, communicated about locally and regionally? Whether it's the mayor of Long Beach or of Oakland, whether it's the governor of Kansas or Massachusetts, whether it's the federal government guideline, that influences something, and it's outside our industry's control. So I continue to tend to underscore Michael Strickland's point of view. We have to stay positive and optimistic, but we also have to be realistic. Anyone who's a business owner like Dave Ratt, I know you probably remember, Dave, you and I talked by phone just the week after Coachella was canceled here for 2020. And at that time, you and I both assumed this would not be a long-term a sea change, just putting pause on the whole industry for a year. We thought it would be a soft summer. So I'm kind of rambling here. I'm just throwing out some ideas to stimulate discussion and perspective from other people. But really, Jan, I think everything we do, as we stay optimistic, as we are creative, as we work on those proposals like Sean's doing, and that's great to hear that there are dozens of potential projects to bid on and events to participate in. But it's a small fraction. It's a tiny percentage of what we all were participating in just 6 months ago. So I'm not being Debbie Downer here. I'm just saying, eyes wide open, be very practical. Think about those creative economic formula, like Dave Ratt was mentioning. How do you keep your doors open, keep your shingle out, maintain your client communications, keep your core infrastructure, including your human resources, in place without overspending on operating costs while you have dramatically reduced income? So I'm not sure that I said much here of real value. I'm mainly touching on how I see our broader industry trying to come to grips with reality. That's really, I think, my message here. Reality is follow the money even if part of that money is coming in the way of federal government subsidies, if it's coming in the way of charitable contributions through the nonprofit and NGOs that are finally paying attention to our industry, these consciousness raising multi-city events that do support the event industry, both live venues, performance facilities, and of course the touring community. They are very important. They are having a difference across the political spectrum. And as you mentioned earlier, Senator Schumer is a co-sponsor just in the last couple of days of a rider, an addendum to the CARES bill that will highlight and specifically earmark funds for live performance venues and the events industry. So that's just a little riff from me in answer to your request, Jan.
Thank you, David. One thing that I will say, it's like you got to be creative. And here's another idea right now of where you could be creative. I mean, this is a 360 drive-in movie. Now, I'm a concert, evidently, where they're having everybody in the cars. I don't know much about this. I just saw this picture and I saw it on one of the trades, so I can't remember exactly. But it's an idea that basically you can run with if you can, but I guess it comes down to financing. Who's going to finance all this? I mean, what about the beer companies? What about the cigarette companies? What about Red Bull? What about all of these companies that normally have people coming to events? How do we tap onto these people? I want to share something with you guys. In putting this show together for today, the Mastermind Group, one of the people, I reached out to one of the top agents over at a talent agency, CAA. And I've known this guy for years and years and years. And I wrote him a letter, and I said to him, "Hey, I'd like you to come in and speak to the group." And he basically says, "Well, I can't really do that." And I said, "But this is really these people are the ones that your people, your performers, are dependent on to do their shows. Without them, you got no shows. Your clients, your music clients, won't be performing anywhere." And he wrote me back. He says, "It's not that, Jan." He says, "I am going through everything that you're going through with all my clients 50 times as much, because I'm dealing with people that make lots and lots of money right now that are desperate for money." So there are people out there that are professional talent that have been supporting all of us by performing. These people are now hurting as well. Not everybody's got royalties coming in or selling. Like I just saw Jim Belushi is now selling weed in association with Live Nation. If you go to the Live Nation site, you could see that. Now that's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea. Anybody else have anything they want to throw in? Anybody want to chip in right now? Because basically, I don't want it to be the Jan Landy show, and I do appreciate what David said. Ken, you look like you have something you want to say.
Yeah. David and David. I know it's been kicked around with a couple manufacturers of how to bring back their business, and Sodom have been worse, as bad as us, in selling stuff. There was an idea kicked around about doing a rental to a need and not purchasing, selling. In other words, if you have a tour that bids and spec this way, for this equipment on it, you rent it from the manufacturer for their tour, and then it goes back to them, and then you rent it there. So basically you're having a use rental from the manufacturers, and they are basically renting it to you. This does seem like, instead of having to heavily debt in asset wise, the questions more is this going to be a good long-term, if the commitment are there, because you can say technology driven, buy this one for this tour, or rent this for this tour, take it back, and then the next tour is going to be a different piece.
I'll be glad to respond, Ken. Great to see you, and I like that little palm tree over your left shoulder there. the point of view from the audio equipment manufacturer or the moving lights or the LED wall manufacturer, remember that what happened for them mostly, and this is not company specific, it's broad spectrum, whether it was Bose Professional, which I was currently linked with, or JBL, Adamson, L Acoustics, Meyer, D&B, Digico, Allen and Heath, Sennheiser, Shure, all of your vendors faced the same drop in top line revenue that you guys did as production service companies, but they had two things that were very different. Thing number one, they were insulated from the reality of the market, meaning the client base they have is you, and then they're two steps away from your client base, the people that pay you to field portable sound, lighting, staging, video systems. The second thing that we're faced with was because of that two-step distance from current events, they, for the most part, did not respond quickly to reduce operating costs. In fact, a number of companies put out optimistic press releases about "we're here for you." And you guys, you watched it, you read Pro Sound News, you looked at Pro Light and Staging News, you saw 2 to 3 months worth of "we're all in this together." You saw press releases about what we're doing in this downtime. There was a series of, I'd say a good solid 90 days of webinars. Everybody was competing for your attention. Did you want to watch Jim Yakubuski, or did you want to watch Pooch, or did you want to watch Robert Scoville? All talk about how to mix or tell war stories or what have you. So we're now on the long tail or the slow decline of that, and we're back to square one, which is on the supplier side. Ken, you look at D&B, Audio-Technica, of which you have some stock. This certified pre-owned program is essentially a way to do something with some of the repossessed and the inbound sold gear and leased gear that is coming back into their financial control. But I still come back to the question, how do we reprime the pump? If the metaphor here is that our industry, the production and events industry, is the pump, and you have water flowing through it, when the water stops and it hiccups and you get an airlock, you have to prime the pump. And so if water is money flowing through, keeping our economy vital and keeping your staff employed and paying for the insurance policies and the truck leases and the real estate and all of the infrastructure, it all comes down to ultimately people buying tickets to attend live events. So the ticket buying public is not going to come back for quite a while. So I do think that there are things that some vendors, be it Sennheiser or L Acoustics or what have you, can do. But just be aware, and I'm sure you keep in touch with some of your good contacts there. Even a strong global firm like L Acoustics had to sadly do a very severe layoff of personnel. In fact, a higher percentage of their staff in North America was let go recently than in other continents. So on the supplier side, they are in the same position that their customers are. But they're less connected to the industry that drives their revenue. In other words, if their customers are not ordering new gear, and if they are sitting on things, a warehouse full of gear that is not shipping to purchase orders, yeah, they could rent that to Spectrum Sound. They could rent that to Rat Sound, but you already have gear in your shop, and you can use the gear you have, and you wouldn't benefit from taking what profit margin you have to rent more gear than you need. So I love the idea. I'm just, and I'll think on it seriously and maybe give you a call later. I'd love to ponder that a little more. But really, just be aware, guys, that on the supplier side, most of your vendors are in business survival mode also.
I really do not. I mean, to have a manufacturer go into competition with the rental companies would be highly undesirable. And not only so, it'd be undesirable enough to where we would probably avoid using that manufacturer's gear if possible.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm unmuted, but let me piggyback on what Dave said. I had a conversation with someone who runs the largest entertainment services company in the world a couple nights ago, and we were talking about this very thing, talking about in our industry, as we all know, it's the flavor of the month that the designers want to specify because the manufacturers are pushing that item, whether it's in lighting, video, or audio. And I don't think there's going to be a demand for the flavor of the month for another 2 years because the resources are sitting on people's shelves not being utilized, and they need to recoup from that loss before we see any new gear hitting the market.
Totally agreed. Totally agreed.
And,
Yeah, the latest, there's no pressure to get new great gear. There's so much gear out there at a discount. The pressure is going to be downward. It's going to be what's the best gear out there and available, and what can I get a better price on it than I used to before.
That's right.
I think that it's going to be, if it's a race to the bottom, then we all going to lose, Dave. And the reality is, it's all about the people and the relationships that we have. You know?
It's just going to be the right now. There's going to be several things. The way I see it, there's so many points here. One is there's going to be a bunch of companies that are under enough duress to where they're going to make very drastic decisions to reduce their rates for survival, last ditch effort. So we're going to deal with that backlash regardless, whether it's wise or unwise. As companies go down and they struggle for survival, they're going to make whatever decisions necessary to prolong. That will have a downward pressure on pricing, and also I'm not saying the downward pressure on pricing isn't even justified. Most of the companies, or many of the companies, if not all, have reduced overhead drastically in order to overcome this. And there's a lot more gear and supply and demand. We're going to see a downward pressure on pricing. Not necessarily a race to the bottom, but a downward pressure on pricing.
Right.
In addition to that, though, there's a lot of compassion out there. There's a lot of companies that have loyal clients that have been in this business, and they're striving to work. The artists will work. I want to back up a little bit. We talk about the rejuvenation or the light at the end of the tunnel. I think that historically, that's already predetermined and known. I mean, this is not the worst. It's like I've fucked up way bigger shows than this. This is not the worst viral pandemic outbreak planet Earth has ever seen. And every single one of them has seen a resurgence towards mass gatherings, or else we wouldn't have had them right now. Every single one bounces. It is in human nature to gather in masses, whether it's sporting events, house of worship, or musical entertainment, etc. So there's no question whether it will return. The question is when. And as far as the spark of Dave Sherman talking about lighting the fire, what do we got to do to prime the pump? We're dealing with something beyond our control if we narrow our focus into the entertainment, because we're legislated by the various governing bodies, whether they're city, state, country based. Those governing bodies are putting limitations on our ability to do what we're doing. And so it's not a matter of priming the pump, it's a matter of having these legislative bodies release those reins, those lockdowns on us. As far as Sturgis is concerned, and then the show that just happened, where was that show in Taiwan or no? The 10,000 seat show in Asia. Where?
I think it was Taiwan, and it was a 4-night show.
Yeah, so we're going to see that. We're going to see a game of whack-a-mole globally where people pop up. The pressure behind resurgence is so great, not only from the artists, but also from the public and from the vendors. All those things triangulate to have this volcanic effect of getting back to something like before. And that's going to erupt in various places throughout. And some of those eruptions will be successful and some of them won't. And we're going to play a game of global whack-a-mole for a while. And I kind of equate it to like people trying to first explore the South Pole. And you have an expedition go down, everybody dies. Another one goes down, and they kind of come back, almost dead. And then pretty soon, though, a bunch of times up Mount Everest, and it becomes a thing. And then we're seeing this kind of early explorer mentality, people taking risks, cities, countries, cultures. Those will manifest themselves. We'll see the resurgence. And then going back to I forgot what the other one was. I lost it there. All right, I jumped from too many subjects. Lost me. I lost myself.
The thing, Dave, the one thing that I'm starting to see is a lot of people are talking about when they go out, it's going to go out a little more streamlined because the managers are talking about going out and getting their feet wet and getting a cash flow base going, stepping back a few in a career to get their cash flow going, and then step it up as they go, which would mean less gags, less production,
Absolutely.
A tour will go out as a 5 or 6 truck tour or stuff like that.
Absolutely. Caution will be, everybody's going to step softly into the unknowns. And it's going to come from the promoters as far as cautiously booking venues and capacities. It's going to come from artists as far as keeping the budgets down, the gags down. And there's going to be such a hunger for it. They can do that. And the budgets, everything's going to start slow and low. And that's okay.
Well, the other part of it is they're going to come out too, that already had been discussed about how little can we cut down the tour prep? How can we I'm worried that we're going to end up with them coming back and say, we're going out Friday. We're going to, the engineers come off furlough on Monday. We'll come in, prep stuff. We'll go into a couple days of rehearsal and bam, we're off on shows. Which then my next question is it for me to be ready what's the best practices to be ready? Because I don't want to have to go play, go fish when they call me on Saturday night from Ohio and say, hey, our console just went down. Where can I get another one by tonight?
I think some of that's going to come down to the brutal reality is that coming out of this, we have, whatever X amount of companies coming into this with Y amount of these companies surviving and Z amount not making it through. And we're going to have some fraction of the previous work come through. And when that work does come through, the ones that are prepared, that are able to get that call on Thursday and load a truck Friday are going to be the ones survive. It's going to be survival of the fittest in the front end of this. Or not necessarily survival of the fittest, but the early bird gets the worm kind of mentality. And then the people that have the finances to hold back and wait for the true surge. But there's going to be I see a lot of picking up scraps as we see now. I mean, there's very little work for a lot of companies, and it's going to just be it's going to be a mess, for quite some time until we get that confidence level, until that global whack-a-mole, until we start seeing, 10,000 seat concerts or bars open in various cities for weeks or months on end, and there's no spike in the virus, or it's leveled off, and they've proven we gain confidence in the, and then that starts. We're also, I think, going to see we're seeing a tremendous amount of territorialism where we probably see something where I see what I haven't seen that I expected to see is a growth of speakeasy type or exclusive clubs that are regionalized. A room opening up, and maybe it hasn't happened yet, but like a venue, 500 seat club sells memberships to people within a certain zip code so that they're isolated within that community, and then hire high profile local or regional artists to come in and play a multi-night stand, and you can become part of this. I think that having these venues be able to select their clientele by zip code or by region, or looking at it the opposite way, the last thing that any city, state, county, country wants is to have an event that attracts people from all over the country or world or state and brings in this, does what's happening up in with the, the biker thing with the Sturgis. Yeah, I mean, that's the last thing that most places want. They're like, where I live in the beach, they have signs up, locals only. Everything is like surfing now. It's locals only. And I think that if there's going to be a resurgence or the early resurgence of rock and roll and musicians and entertainment, we'll need to embrace that locals only concept if it's going to circumvent backlash from the local community and from local governments and legislations. And that's probably the early, what I see, I'm surprised people aren't doing it. What I see is the path forward, at least in the short term.
Let me ask you a question, as right now, because if I'm correct, you used to work with the Peppers, and they're a very big draw. And so you look at, let's look at an analogy of what they're doing up in Orlando, Florida with the NBA. They basically got them in a bubble. What if the Peppers got together and said, you know what, we're gonna take over a Las Vegas hotel, and you're going to have to come through our system, and that you're going to be in a hotel room for 2 weeks, and then at the end of 2 weeks, man, everybody in the hotel is going to be free to roam, and we are going to perform every night at 7 o'clock. What do you think of an idea like that?
I think that that's still that doesn't have enough locals only. I see it more as like 2 of the Chili Peppers live in Malibu, 2 live in Silver Lake, or and they book a club in Malibu, and that club in Malibu offers people that live in Malibu within a 15-mile radius the ability to buy tickets for this club, and the Peppers are playing to people that live nearby, and the community that's already together stays together and does the show at a high ticket price, and then they Zoom, they live stream it or do whatever. And community-based, not going to the Vegas or Orlando or any of these epicenters where you've got a global community, global exposure. I think the exposure is 2 ways. It's not just keeping the Peppers safe or keeping the artists safe, but it's also keeping the clientele safe. Will people in Malibu go to a show that a bunch of people from Chicago and Florida are showing up for? Probably not as much so as will people in Malibu go to a show that only people in Malibu can come into? Oh, shoot, these are our people. We're already exposed to them at the grocery store. We're just going to hang out in the music venue instead of, in the same breakfast joint. And I think that embracing that localism, territorialism is going to be is kind of fundamental to the expansion of music performances.
To enhance that idea, I have been basically a prisoner in my own house since March, and I can't handle it anymore. So I've now gone back to my gym where they have indoor tennis courts, and I was very nervous about going in there. But when I went in there, the first thing I noticed, they've got plexiglass everywhere. Next, I know I had to go through a temperature check. Then I noticed everybody's mandated to wearing masks. And then the next thing I noticed is everybody is keeping their distance from one another. So it seems to me that more and more people are starting to say, hey, the gym is safe. And once people start saying that, all of a sudden, then people will start to return. So if we could do that with music, then I see it would work, especially on a local.
The concept of that, though, is being implemented in the form of drive-in movie theater type, stay in your car, and the isolated riser thing like you showed. And that's going to, that's cute and it's fun. but it's ultimately not going to be a financially viable adventure based without paradigm shifts on financing these events.
Not only just an FYI, we know that it doesn't work by staying in the car because we've seen two shows go down, the chain smokers being one of them, where everybody just jumped out of their cars anyway. So so we know that that's not going to be reality. That's why
Yeah, I
Open
think that
Village.
we got to get our heads. I mean, there's going to be a point where, as long as everybody's in lockdown, plexiglass, and 6 foot, but that's not going to last forever. There's going to be a point in time in the not too distant future, 6 to 12 months, I would say, maybe 2 years at the most, but where that is relieved. People are going to, the pent up thing that you speak of, being trapped in your house. There's a choice that we're making right now between staying alive and making life worth living. And we could all stay alive much longer if we ate perfect food and never left our house and really made sure everything was perfect, never took any risks, never went skiing, snowboarding, biking, whatever, never got in a car. But then life doesn't become worth living. So we're constantly making decisions between danger and happiness. And as time goes on, people are willing to take bigger risks and the danger level is dropping. So at some point they converge and we move on. And that's the point where the rock shows will begin to happen.
And we also know from Michael Strickland and from other people is that there are four major drug companies right now that are in a race to have a vaccine. So we know that for sure. And everybody who's got any money in pharmaceuticals right now is thinking about exactly that. If we could only get a vaccine, that would be a wonderful thing. Anyway, I appreciate everybody's time. Before we close it up, is there anybody that has something that they want to share with one another before we say 73, 61 Eason? David Dansky, if you feel like you got to say something, please. But unmute your mic. There you go.
There you go. So there's something I wanted to bring up. I was hoping Michael Strickland would be here because it's an approach that I haven't heard yet on how to get more money and more attention aimed towards our direction. And that is to remind these politicians that their lifeblood in their wallets is fundraisers. And the more there's attrition in our industry, the less ability they're going to have to be able to raise funds. That will get their attention. And I'm wondering if anybody's ever brought that up to these guys. I mean, we did the same thing when it came to the frequencies and wireless mics. They were told you're not going to have sports, you're not going to have your mics for your events. And they worked with us a little on that. But this is something that I think you got to scare them. I think that'll scare them. That's it.
Yeah. Well, I think we're going to just see what happens with the Democratic Party right now, because this is their biggest fundraiser right now, what they're doing right now. And it's all virtual, and it's a presentation now rather than a live performance. And so we'll see how the public relates to that momentarily. We're going to find out right now about that. Anyway, is there anybody else that has anything that they want to share before we round this one up?
Hey, Jan, I sent you via email a graphic. I know a lot of folks here saw the Red Alert campaign that was going on in Europe, where a lot of the manufacturers and the big production houses lit up their buildings in red on a specific date. We are now doing that in the US. Although, we're not a production company, but we hear a lot about what's going on in that world. And the email, I got it first yesterday, and now it's all over LinkedIn and Twitter. September 1st is the date for here in the US for Red Alert. And Jan, I emailed you the graphic just a few minutes ago. I don't know if you could post it or share it with everyone, but basically they're just asking you to light your building in red, whether that's your office building or your home or both. And they're asking manufacturers and municipalities production companies, anybody in the industry to do that all on September 1st.
Mike, what you could do is drop it in the chat, and then anybody could grab it right from the chat. I believe you're able to put a file into the chat. I think I have that. If not, I'll get it to everybody for sure. And by the way, if you're looking at the chat window and you want to save the chat, there are three little dots on the bottom of the chat. Just click on those three little dots, and you will be able to save the chat to look at it at your leisure. I want to thank everybody from the bottom of my heart for coming here. You know, I know we all have better things to do right now, even if it is to watch paint dry or whatever it is we do. But the reality is that without you guys, I wouldn't have an income, and I wouldn't have a life the way I had my life. For 23 years, I've been servicing your industry, and now I feel it's time for me to give back as much as I can. And by you coming here and being with me today shows that you appreciate what I've done. And I can't thank you enough, especially those, and you know who you are, who've keep coming over and over again. I really would urge you, if you like what we've done today, to spread the word, because I'm only one guy, and without your assistance out there, it's hard for one person to just build up this mastermind group. I need you guys to think about it, and when I send you out the next invite with the pre-register link, for you to send that out to people that you know, if you believe that this is worthwhile, because we put our minds together, we got a lot of great ideas out of today. Now, it wasn't exactly what I wanted, because there's still not money on the table for all of us. But when Michael Strickland comes back and gives us a heads up on what to do, or all of these different ideas that people have on how to make money, like Dave Ratt, for example, or Dave Levine, had came up with his ideas, they're all viable and it's possible that something is going to come of this. And one of the things that I took out of this, and I made a note, is best practices. A few people said best practices. And one of the things that I will say is that, unfortunately, in this kind of economy, not everybody makes it. The cream rises to the top. But it's good, bad things happen to good people. And it's my goal to give us as much tools as possible so that we will be able to survive. And I think that the next thing that I want to do is talk about budgeting and how you need to watch your money so that you are here during these tough times so that you do survive. And that's the whole concept of the mastermind group. So I really appreciate everybody coming. As far as I am concerned, you make it happen. Go out and make it happen, and I will see you again next week. And now I am going to shut off the live streams and stop the recording, and we could have a free-for-all. You know, that's it. You know, and we are off the air.